ABC News presents complete nationwide coverage of tonight's Election 72. Brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealers. See all the better ideas for 73 at your Ford dealers. Now from election headquarters in New York, the anchormen of the ABC Evening News, Harry Reasoner and Howard K. Smith.
I think we should remind you that you can still vote in most of the states of the Union if you go and hurry. It's not too late to vote, even though we're giving results in those states where polls have closed. I would like to show you what the popular vote looks like now. With some 5% of the nation's precincts in, Richard Nixon leads with 67% of the vote, rather higher than his highest last Gallup poll, which was 61% today. McGovern, 32%. We have a state projection in that presidential election. In the presidential election in the state of Vermont, Nixon is projected winner of Vermont's 3 electoral votes. No surprise, Vermont's voted Democratic only once in 100 years. Repeating, Nixon carries Vermont.
We have 2 other projections in the presidential race, Howard, and one of them is a key state, Florida, with 17 electoral votes. ABC News now projects will be in President Nixon's column. He's running with 22% of the precinct reporting. He's running with about 75% of the vote, as opposed to the 41% of the vote he got in Florida in 1968 when George Wallace was in it. ABC News also projects in the presidential race in Alabama that Richard Nixon will be the winner, with 6% of the precincts in, with enough of our key precincts in so that we can see how it's going. He's running with 79% of the vote in 1968 in Alabama. In George Wallace's home state, he got 14% of the vote. This year, Governor Wallace, of course, as I presume, watching the results, somewhat continual discomfort that he has in the governor's mansion in Montgomery, not an active candidate, nominal endorsement of a number of Democrats, but not touching at all on the presidency. That gives President Nixon, according to my figures, something like 116 total electoral votes on the way to the 270 that he needs. He has taken so far all of the states that he was expected to, and Illinois, which was somewhat in doubt.
Harry, we have a projection in the contest for control of the United States Senate. The Democrats win another one. In the Senate race in the state of Alabama, we project Democratic incumbent veteran Senator John J. Sparkman retains his seat in the Senate, defeating the Republican challenger Winton Blunt, the last Postmaster General in Nixon's cabinet. So Sparkman carries Alabama.
The clearest case yet, I suppose, of the ticket splitting that we expect tonight, where Alabama goes 80% for President Nixon, but rejects his former Postmaster General. It's something you said that indicates a new sophistication in the United States, this ability to split tickets and learn how to use voting machines. But it does not. It does give any party a problem. You wonder when, again, any party will take control of the Congress in any way that's meaningful.
Here's another projection. The party in control of the Senate is staying in control of the Senate so far. In the Senate race in the state of West Virginia, as expected, Democrat Jennings Randolph, who's served 3 terms already, wins re-election to the Senate over Republican Louise Leonard. This was very, very much expected.
One of the cases where the party is winning 2 races within a state is Illinois, where ABC News projects President Nixon the winner, and also projects Charles Percy, the incumbent senator, the winner. He's at our studios in Chicago with ABC's John Drury.
Senator Percy, as you know, ABC has projected you the winner in this race, giving you 53% of the vote, and Paczynski 47%. That is not the margin that the polls have been giving you.
I think I'd be disappointed if that was the margin that I had. I'd be very pleased if I exceeded the margin that I had in 1966 running against Paul Douglas, but I think any less than that would be disappointing.
Well, you're looking for something over 423,000 votes then.
That's right.
Of course, everyone's been talking to you ever since the Republican convention about your future on a national ticket in the Republican Party, and speculation, of course, is again here this evening. What are your plans about national politics?
Speculation is unfounded. I have no plans other than to serve in the Senate for the next 6 years.
Some look to you as the liberal alternative to Vice President Spiro Agnew on the top of the ticket.
I think there are a great many candidates inside the Republican Party. I can look to my good friend Bob Taft in Ohio, who's done an outstanding job, with Howard Baker in Tennessee, any number of colleagues across the country. I'm very proud of the quality of the men that we have now in the governorships, in the Senate, and the House on the Republican side.
Senator Percy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Senator Percy, do you think you've come into conflict with President Nixon on several issues, one very recently, I recall. Do you think that your voice will carry greater weight now that you're going to be a second-term senator at the White House?
Well, I've had some differences with the administration, but as you know, I enthusiastically supported the president. I will be releasing a statement very soon congratulating him, and I hope that the same bold, creative, innovativeness that he has shown in foreign policy can now be directed toward our domestic problems and the nation build here at home. And I think in that respect, he will seek the support of all Republicans in the House and the Senate.
Senator Percy, this is Harry Reasoner. You've gotten it both ways from Republican presidential candidates now. Senator Goldwater in 1964 presumably helped you lose your first try at statewide office, and now you and President Nixon are both doing very well. What, apart from saying which way do you like it better, I won't do that, what happens now with an automatic lame duck president to a senator who has won by a large margin?
Well, I must say, the taste of victory is, if we have that, and it's much too early to tell yet, but is much sweeter than defeat. But I must say, it's hard for us to determine what's best for us. I enjoyed running for the governorship. I was sorry when I lost. From the other standpoint, I think we have an outstanding governor in Governor Ogilvie, and I've enjoyed the United States Senate immensely.
Senator, I want to ask you a very difficult question, and that is, whom do you favor in the gubernatorial race in the state of West Virginia? The Republican candidate or your son-in-law?
Officially, I am, of course, neutral, but sentiment and heart and my deep admiration for my son-in-law and my love for my daughter, I should leave it to you to decide where my sentiments are right now and my emotions.
Thanks very much, Senator Percy and John Drury. We'll have more on Election 72 in just a moment.
If you've ever been unhappy with your car for any reason, Ford Motor Company and 6,283 Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealers have an important announcement for you. If you want a Ford, Mercury, or Lincoln, they want to make sure that you stay happy with it. The goal is no unhappy owners. And the next time you go into one of these dealers, you'll find some new ways of doing business. Suppose you have a problem with your car. You take it to your dealer. You'll do everything within reason to solve it. And most of the time, he will. So you see the dealer first. But if, for some reason, he can't solve your problem, Ford Motor Company has formed an exclusive new customer service division with 34 offices around the country. Now, their primary job is to try to straighten out problems you and the dealer can't. For the address of the Ford Customer Service Division office nearest you, call this toll-free number. It's 800-648-4848. The goal is no unhappy owners. They really mean it. I'd like to prove it to you.
So far, at roughly 10 minutes after 8 in the East, the election is going about the way the polls thought it would. President Nixon running ahead in popular vote about 2-1. That popular vote as yet is not decisive or not even very numerous. The states are beginning to be. Mr. Nixon has now taken 10 states, according to ABC projections. We know enough either from their popular vote or from our key precincts to project him the winner in Indiana with 13, Kentucky with 9, Mississippi, Georgia, Illinois, a major state, South Carolina, Virginia, Vermont, Florida, and Alabama, for a total of 116 electoral votes. And I think there may be another one coming up in just a moment.
Harry, we've been getting results so fast we haven't had a chance to look ahead. I think we ought to take a look at some of the states where decisions will come soon. The state of West Virginia, one of the most democratic states in the Union in the presidential race. There, Nixon hopes to upset a long Democratic trend, and indeed, Nixon is projected to be the winner in West Virginia at this moment by results from key precincts that ABC has maintained. Nixon carries one of the most democratic states in the Union, West Virginia, which he's never carried before. The state went to Kennedy in 1960, went to Humphrey in 1968. Well, in the Senate races that we were talking about, there have been 7 Senate races so far. 6 of them won by Democrats. 5 won by Democrats, 2 by Republicans. Only 2 really come as close races, which ended in favor of the Democrats and might have gone Republican. Kentucky, there's the scoreboard now. The Democrats have won 5, Republicans 2, a net gain for the Democrats. That net gain is the state of Kentucky, where the Democrats had won the state that used to be held by the prestigious Republican Senator John Sherman Cooper. But that race, which was won by Walter Huddleston, and the race in Georgia won by Sam Nunn, were the really close ones.
In Washington at the Shoreham Hotel, as you so kindly explained, that's where the Shoreham is ABC's David Shoemaker. He has with him Clark McGregor, the chairman of the committee to re-elect the president, who, for reasons I think are fairly clear, is smiling. Now, David?
As you say, this man sitting next to me is a terribly nervous, worried Clark McGregor, but I think Mr. McGregor looks like you're holding on.
Well, we're very encouraged. We're running somewhat better than we thought we would, and the thing that pleases us most is that in urban areas like Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Mayor Ralph Burke said that the president's running ahead of any projections. And we're very excited about that because it means that the president is going to have a very strong base of support in American urban areas for the next 4 years.
Well, do you see any clouds at all out there on the horizon?
None that I'm able to discern now, but the evening is young.
Well, do you think this is a personal victory rather than a party victory?
It's personal in the sense that the president's programs are well understood and perceived by the American people, and the American people have given a strong vote of support for the philosophy, the ideas, the programs, the hopes, and the ideals of Richard Nixon.
But it's not party?
Well, insofar as Richard Nixon is the finest exponent of the basic philosophy of the Republican Party, yes, it's a party victory. If Republican candidates for the Senate and the House have not been as successful as the president, that means that they haven't been as articulate in developing basic Republican philosophy.
What do you think as you talk upstairs about the outlook now for the Senate?
Well, we don't have any returns from South Dakota or Idaho as yet. We have nothing from New Mexico or Oklahoma. It's too early to call the Senate.
Mr. McGregor, as you went through this campaign, what was the worst you ever thought you'd do? How many states?
Well, I put it in terms of percentage. The worst I thought we'd do would be 40 states. In terms of percentage, the worst I thought we'd do would be 55%.
So you're running ahead of that. Right now, if you were George McGovern or one of his advisors, would you be conceding?
Well, I know how he feels. 2 years ago, I was beaten by Hubert Humphrey. Not as bad as Richard Nixon is beating George McGovern, but I know how it feels to lose.
What about what's going to happen with this mandate if all of the projections are true? Would you expect any major change in the administration, in cabinet positions, things like that?
No, I would expect that the president's leadership would be even more effective in the next 4 years than it's been in the first 4 in dealing with foreign governments, particularly in Moscow and Peking. The vote of approval that the president has received will strengthen his hand. He'll also be much more effective with Congress as a 60 or 61 or 62 or 3% president than he was as a 43.4% president.
Well, in just a few seconds, what would you expect him to come back with? Which of his programs that he didn't get through now?
Well, you'll see a very pragmatic approach, a problem-solving approach. The president will not be an ideologue in any way. He'll come up with solutions that really deal with problems to solve problems. And I think the Congress will respond.
Mr. McGregor, thank you very much for stopping by.
McGregor, and thank you, David Shoemaker. We have another state projection in the presidential race. ABC News projects that in the race in North Carolina, President Nixon will get North Carolina and its 13 votes. Very few precincts have reported in the popular vote, but we have enough of our key precincts to judge that he will take the state, giving him a total now of 135 electoral votes.
135, Harry, is 1/2 of 270. Nixon's halfway there now with that. We'd like to take a look at the Senate race in North Carolina. We just projected the victory for Nixon in the presidential race, but in the Senate race, it's not yet we're not yet able to call it. And the Democrat, Nick Galifianakis, is ahead of the Republican, Jesse Helms, the radio and television commentator.
Howard, we'll have more on Election 72 in just a moment.
When my wife was looking for cookware, you should have heard what went on around this house. Her mother calls up and says, "Don't get anything too heavy, dear. You'll be sorry." My mother, the good cook, says, "Take it from me. Cast aluminum is best. Every day, something else. Will it go in a dishwasher? Square pans hold more, you know. Be sure you like the way it looks." "No," my mother says, "what matters is the way it cooks." Pretty soon, she didn't know what she was looking for. Then she saw J.C. Penney cookware. It had everything. She bought it, and she took my advice. Don't spend more than $40.
The new J.C. Penney cookware, only at J.C. Penney. We designed it on the best advice.
Some cook, huh, Mom?
Tomorrow morning, our 1,700 J.C. Penney stores and our catalog will be waiting to help you find what you're looking for.
6% of the precincts reported now in tonight's presidential election. President Nixon running well ahead, and a new state projection by ABC News. President Nixon will get New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes, giving him a total of 139 so far, none for George Montgomery.
Harry, part of Nixon's great sweep in the South is due to the absence of George Wallace. We would like to have a talk with George Wallace. Our correspondent, Bill Worden, is at Wallace's headquarters in Montgomery. Bill, can you come in?
Yes, Howard. I have the governor with me here now. He's been watching the returns with his family and aides here in the mansion in Montgomery. Governor Wallace, electoral college votes seem to indicate that the president is about halfway home. Do you have any reaction this early in the evening to the way it is going?
Well, the polls predicted this, although the eastern seaboard states are still voting, and of course in the far west. And it's a little bit early to make any statement about it, other than it's going about like I thought. In this particular part of the country, here in Alabama, of course, Mr. Nixon is leading.
Governor, how does it feel this time around, after so many other elections, to be sitting, as it were, on the sidelines watching the game being played to conclusion?
Well, I haven't been actively involved in the presidential campaign, of course, but I've had plenty of visitors who have been very interested in the presidential campaign, that is, visitors from both national parties. And I enjoyed my involvement in 1968, and I do feel that many of the issues that the people of Alabama and that I talked about in 1968 are now being talked about by President Nixon and Senator McGovern. And I do feel that that's an indication that the people of this country are moving toward the position that we thought was the correct position on many issues all the time. I wish I could have been a little more involved, but of course my involvement was cut short last May.
Governor, can you hear me? This is Howard Smith in New York.
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith, I can hear you.
Well, sir, I would like to ask you something I'm puzzled about. You and John Sparkman, the senator from Alabama, have never been very close, but you did endorse him in this race. Why didn't you endorse more candidates in the election?
Well, you mean in Alabama or throughout the country?
Throughout the South, especially.
Well, there were a number that I did endorse throughout the South, and Senator Sparkman hasn't been all that far aloof from me, if that's what you're trying to bring about. But I did support Senator Sparkman, and I believe he's going to be elected here in Alabama. Of course, Mr. Blunt's a very fine man, but he's never supported our efforts either, although Senator Sparkman has been more friendly to me than you've indicated.
Governor Wallace, this is Harry Reasoner. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mr. Reasoner.
Governor, what happens to the Democratic Party now if this goes on through the evening the way it's going now?
Well, if it goes on through the evening, as I said, it's a little early. But if it goes on through the evening, it means that the great Democratic Party that passed, in my judgment, will come back. But it will come back with those who have expressed the viewpoints that I have represented. That is, if you recall, I think that the Republican Party this time adopted in its platform almost every single item rejected at the Democratic convention, and it means that the average citizen who used to be in control of the party, is going to take it back over. But that, of course, remains to be seen. We haven't seen all the votes in yet.
Thank you very much, Governor Wallace and Bill Werdum. On the West Coast is the man carrying the banner of the party that was founded for George Wallace in 1968, the American Party, John Smits, with ABC's Dick Shoemaker.
Congressman Smits, it seems to me at this point that where is the American Party going to go from here? You're not going to get perhaps just a fraction of the votes that George Wallace did in 1968.
Well, how do you know?
About 1%.
I haven't even seen any returns in this.
But it apparently seems like about
No, they
1%.
they haven't had anything on us. They've had Richard Nixon and George McGovern. It's the same way as all year long. It's the same way you've treated us, and ABC and NBC and CBS have treated us the same way all year long. They've treated this campaign as if it's a campaign between two people. Richard Nixon, the man who broke virtually every campaign promise he made, or George McGovern, the man who, if elected, we'd only hope and pray that he would break every campaign promise he made. And now you come in, the day of the election, you come and invite me on. You say, where you been all year?
That's not true, Congressman.
Oh, come on, you had me on.
We have covered your campaign, and I have covered it. I've heard you speaking in Long Beach. I've heard you speaking at UCLA.
Yeah, you've heard me.
We have put stories about you on the air.
No, you.
But the question is, where does the American
Party...
Party...
me, but it ended up on the cutting room floor, and I'll ask all your viewers out there, how often have you seen me on ABC?
That's not true, Congressman.
No,
let me ask you this question.
Isn't it funny? They come now the day of the election. How come you're not doing so well, Congressman? You know, we've frozen you off for 3 months now. How come you're not doing well?
Where is the American Party going from this point?
Look, I'll tell you something. I have a lot better chance of winning this election than this country's got of surviving as a republic if someone like me doesn't win.
Are you saying, then, that Richard Nixon is going to lead this republic to ruin?
Oh, I said that all campaign along, but you didn't think it was newsworthy for the last 3 months.
Now, it's no secret...
You filmed me. Sure you filmed me. I probably had more stuff to end up on the cutting room floor than anyone in this campaign.
That's not true, Congressman. We put you on the air nationwide.
Yeah? Well, have you folks seen me on the air? Except what we paid for? Make your own judgment, folks.
Now,
Thank you, Congressman Smits. That's the other side of the Richard Nixon story, the part of the former Republicans who think that Richard Nixon is a dangerous liberal and that we are helping him too much. The Congressman Smits, so far, actually, we have showed his vote, has got about 1%. And that's the national election story at 22 minutes after the hour.